Tinubu wants even broke universities to fund him. Welcome to the news and thank you for tuning in to listen. Please subscribe to our channel. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is really having a ball at the expense of the rest of Nigeria. He has become so comfortable in his presidential self-indulgence that he now wants to bring water from stones and deposit it into an ocean. Our stone-broke universities are the stones. The presidency is the ocean to which Tinubu wants to pour the water he wants to extract from stones. It wasn't enough that he signed the 2.176 trillion naira Supplementary Appropriation Act on Wednesday in Abuja, mostly to fund decadent presidential pleasures such as $38 million for the presidential air fleet, $6.1 million for a presidential yacht, and even more millions of dollars for presidential repairs, presidential feeding, foreign SUVs for the First Lady office, and for legislatures, etc. Now, he wants struggling, cash-strapped federal university that are barely surviving to turn over 40% of all their internally generated revenue to the federal coffers to fund more presidential separatism and elite indulgence. I didn't believe it when someone first called my attention to it. The leadership newspaper reported this week that the Accountant General of the Federation by the name Mrs. Oluwatoyin Medin sent a memo to all federal universities titled Implementation of 40% Automatic Deduction from Internally Generated Revenue of Partially Funded Federal Government Institutions. Signed on her behalf by Felix Orelfe Ogundaru, the Director of Revenue and Investment in the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. The memo said, and I quote, "I am directed to inform you that the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, HMF and CME has approved the implementation of a 40% auto-deduction from the gross internally generated revenue IGR of all partially funded federal government institutions in line with the provision of Section 62 of Finance Act 2020 with effect from November 2023. Agencies and parastatals to not more than 50% of their gross internally generated revenue and the remittance of 100% of the remaining 50% to the sub-recurrent account, while all statutory revenues lines like tender fees, contractor registration fees, disposal of fees at rent on quarters shall be remitted 100% to the sub-recurrent account. Consequently, all partially funded agencies and parastatals must align their budget requirements and ensure total compliance with the provision of a Section 62 of the Finance Act 2020 and Finance Circular 2021. This makes absolutely no sense at all. I am not talking of the blindly poor grammar of the memo. The memo concedes that federal universities are merely partially funded by the federal government. That is an acknowledgement of their financial precarity, saying they are supposed to be fully funded by the federal government which established them. In order to survive and live up to demands of the mandate, in spite of progressively vanishing support from the federal government that set them up, many universities devise creative and not so creative strategies to generate funds to stay afloat, which are not even sufficient. Now, a government that has beaten every known record for eye-watering presidential profligacy wants to share in whatever little money financially distressed universities were able to raise to keep them from going under. This is a wantonly cruel suffocation of federal universities that are barely hanging on. It betrays not just the profound poverty of imagination, but a study designed to snuff out the last evidence of life in our universities. Since children of the elites no longer attend public universities in Nigeria, it is easy to see why the government wants to kill them by stealth. It is a continuation of the conservative, right-wing, anti-people, neoliberal, and orthodoxy that is obviously the governing philosophy of the Tinubu administration. It is probably also a preemptive move against legitimate demands for the funding of federal universities, since the administration has said it has not saved trillions of naira from the removal of petroleum subsidies. The initial argument was that money saved from the removal of petrol subsidies will be invested in education and infrastructure. That has turned out, at least so far, to be a big fat lie, as some of us had predicted. The money is instead being used to pay for the hedonic thrills and delights of people in power, while the majority of the people sinks irrecoverably into the abyss of misery and deprivation. But someone needs to tell Hongkors of the Tinubu administration that universities are not money-making enterprises. They are social services. Social services are an investment in the people and not revenue-generating ventures to fund the government. It is sad that this needs to be pointed out. Every single country on earth that transited from backwardness and stagnancy to success and progress has had to invest enormously in its universities. For example, Singapore's transition from a third world to first world was enabled by its investment in its universities. Singapore has now become a hub for education in Asia and is known for its world-class faculty, cutting-edge research facilities, and strong emphasis on innovation. It didn't happen overnight or by mere wishes. It happened because the government of Singapore has consistently invested in its universities. South African universities are world-class and drive the country's development because the central government there has committed massive resources to the higher education sector. Public universities receive substantial funding from the government, which is responsible for their high economic reputation, significant research output, and impressive contribution to national growth. India, the world's most populous country with its large and diverse higher educational system, has several well-funded public universities that are the drivers of the country's march to greatness. Institutions like the Indian Institute of Technology, IITs, and the Indian Institute of Management, IIMs, receive substantial government support which enables them to excel in technology, management, and research. China has the second largest economy in the world after the United States. One of the secrets for its transition from dingy deprivation a few decades ago to gleaming prosperity now is the significant increase it made over time in its investment in its higher education sector. Top public universities like Tsinghua University and Peking University receive substantial government funding, which arms them with the arsenal to compete globally in terms of research, output, and academic excellence. It speaks to the lack of foresight and self-interestedness of the ruling elite in Nigeria that insisted of investing in our universities with an eye to the future, that want to squeeze money out of them